The new Apple iPad Pro 2022 edition has only one change on the outside, and it is this. There's a Pro branding on the back, otherwise it looks exactly the same as the last year's model. That means we get two cameras on this squarish module. There's also Type-C port at the bottom for charging, and the front camera is placed in this portrait orientation. But internally, something big is happening. Apple has added support for Apple Pencil Hover. There's also support for Wi-Fi 6E, and there is an M2 chipset powering the Apple iPad Pro 2022 lineup. The same chipset also powers Apple's latest MacBook Air lineup. That essentially means that the tablet has the power of a PC, and that is ridiculous, isn't it? But so is the price tag. The base variant of the Apple iPad Pro that comes with 11-inch screen and Wi-Fi, it costs roughly 80,000. The variant which I have that comes with 1 terabyte of storage, 16 gigs of RAM, a 12.9-inch screen and 5G, it costs over 1.8 lakhs. So this begs the question, what makes the Apple iPad Pro 2022 lineup so expensive, and is it worth it for a customer if you are not a hardcore creator? Well, that's what I'm gonna do in today's video. This is Abhik, you're watching Fiber. Let's get started. Now, before I start with the review, two things I want to highlight. I have also shot a review of the Apple iPad Pro 2022 in Hindi, so you can watch that on our Fiber Hindi channel after watching this video. And secondly, Delhi weather has not been kind to me. You can feel it in my voice. So just to show support, like, share, subscribe. Kar do yaar. Now, without any delay, let's start with the display and the design. Now, if you have seen my past tablet reviews, I have maintained this before that I am not a big fan of tablets with big screen, and when Apple sent me a 12.9-inch variant of the Apple iPad Pro, again, I had my hesitation. But I thought it will also be a nice exercise to see whether I'm still on the same page, and it turns out I think I am. You see, Apple has made the 12.9-inch variant somewhat easy to carry. It is also portable, and I like the weight distribution, but again, it comes with challenges. For example, if I am watching content and I have the iPad placed on my arms, it becomes tiresome after using it for hours, especially if you don't have a cover, which I don't. Secondly, if you don't have a cover, carrying the tablet is somewhat difficult because when you put it in your backpack, the screen is very prone to scratch marks. Plus, it is not very easy to hold it while you are using it for a video call. So naturally, a tablet with this kind of a screen comes with challenges. Design-wise, Apple has made no compromises, and literally no compromises, because the iPad 2022 Pro model is the same as the last year's model with some changes. Honestly, I don't care about these changes too much because it makes my job easier for you to recommend which iPad Pro to go for. So that way, if you are looking for an Apple iPad Pro with substantial design changes, the new model will not give you some big surprises. But the advantage of a 12.9-inch screen is that Apple has added a Liquid Retina XDR display, which is a fancy term for mini LED, while the 11-inch variant of the Apple iPad Pro comes with LCD screen. Now, at first glance, you won't be able to make out differences, but then see, when you place them next to side by side, the differences are very noticeable. For example, I tested the Apple iPad Pro's display performance against an HP laptop, and mind you, the HP laptop comes with a very capable LCD display. But again, the differences are very noticeable. If the camera is not able to detect, I can tell you the colors on the Apple iPad Pro are much boosted. The dark spots are also much richer. So that way, the display on the Apple iPad Pro is very wholesome, and Apple also deserves credit here. When I use the Apple iPad Pro to watch content, the speakers on the tablet are one of the best. If I compare it against any tablet or any smartphone, the bass is very punchy, the audio is very clear. So overall, when you are watching content on the Apple iPad Pro and just based on the visual experience, it is the best in the market at this point. Now, when I began this video, I spoke about three key features that Apple is highlighting on the Apple iPad Pro 2022 lineup. First is the Apple Pencil Hover support, then is Wi-Fi 6E, and then the M2 chipset. Now, let's look at them one by one. First, let's talk about the Apple 2nd Gen Pencil with hover support. Now, you see, if you haven't used an Apple iPad with the Pencil, I can tell you Apple has maintained the quality on this one as well. When you are using a pencil on the Apple iPad Pro, the scribing experience is so pleasant. Even with a glossy finish, you get a very real life like feedback. But then Apple has added an hover support, and does that make much of a difference? Well, that depends on two cases: if you are a creator or if you are a regular user. See, as a creator, which I'm not, there is a big difference because now the pencil, however, will let you preview some colors while you're creating some designs. It will also let you pinpoint at the areas that you want to highlight. So that way it definitely has use cases. As a regular user, I just needed the pencil to sign some documents, just to scribe random notes, or just to create some design. That way it didn't disappoint. But again, it is a good to have feature, but not a must have feature if you are a regular customer. But just to be clear, I also asked some creators of India Today to test the iPad and tell me whether this difference is substantial or not. And let me tell you, they did say yes. And they did give me a feedback that this does create some difference to a larger extent. So if you want to watch a video on that, let me know in the comments and we will create a separate video on just the Apple Pencil Hover experience. Now next is the Wi-Fi 6E support. Now see, just to clarify it to you, Wi-Fi 6E unlocks the capability of fast internet on the tablet. But again, there's a catch with Wi-Fi 6E. See, for that technology to work, you also need a Wi-Fi 6E enabled router, which is very expensive, and even I don't have it, so I couldn't test it. But the good thing is that Apple has added this support on the Apple iPad Pro 2022 lineup, so that makes it future ready. And lastly, the M2 chipset on the Apple iPad Pro. Now see, M2 chipset is again the same processor that Apple has used on its Apple MacBook Air lineup of this year, and it does come with a lot of advantages. Firstly, if you just look at the benchmark that I have done, the scores are very impressive, but again, scores and real life performance are very different. See, the M2 definitely unlocks a lot of capabilities. The performance is very snappy, it is very fast, very responsive. But there's one thing, while playing NBA through the Apple Arcade, which is also bundled with the Apple iPad, you get 3 months free subscription. When I played that game, I did notice some heating issues. And I also noticed the heating issues while using the camera app, but otherwise there was no performance lag whatsoever. So M2 does bring some great power to the Apple iPad Pro lineup, especially of this year, but it does heat up the tablet to a certain extent. Secondly, Apple is also shipping the Apple iPad Pro 2022 lineup with the iPad OS 16.1 update. Now, there are a lot of things to talk about the Apple iPad OS, and which I will be doing it in the future, or if you want to see a special reel or any other video, let us know in the comments. But just to highlight the main feature and what the tablet is all about, which is multitasking. The Apple iPad Pro comes with Apple iPad OS 16.1 that includes the Stage Manager. Now what Stage Manager does, it lets you run multiple app windows at the same time. That means you can switch from one app to other, and it basically makes your multitasking capabilities much smoother. Now, I'm not fully convinced by this because I do have one feedback for Apple. If Apple introduces an app layout like that we saw on Windows 11 update that rolled out last year, you see, when you use the Stage Manager, it randomly puts all the apps in this very free form factor, and sometimes it's very difficult to manage or microsize or change the size of the app screen. So that way, if Apple uses an app layout, the app screen will automatically adjust size based on your preferences, and I think Apple can probably use that. Lastly, to test multitasking capabilities like the Stage Manager, you also need an additional Apple accessory like the Magic Keyboard, which in my case I didn't have, so I couldn't fully test whether you can use an iPad as a laptop. Now moving to cameras, Apple has again added 3 cameras on the Apple iPad Pro edition. Here we have 2 cameras on the back. There's a 12 megapixel wide camera and there's a 10 megapixel ultra wide camera. On the front, there is a 12 megapixel front camera sensor. Now simply based on the performance compared to last year's model, I do not see much of a difference. But again, this is the first time when I'm fully using an Apple iPad Pro, and the first thought that comes to my head is that whether it is on par with any smartphone that comes with advanced cameras. So I compare the results with an iPhone 14 and the results are pretty surprising. Say for instance, in this photo, both Apple iPhone 14 and the iPad Pro detected the reds very well. The focus is also very sharp, though the Apple iPad Pro photo is slightly on the cooler side. And in this photo, at first you will barely see any differences, but a closer look shows that the iPhone 14 photo has a more contrast and more shadows prominently. Visually, the phone camera does a better job. And lastly, in this photo, in the right lighting condition, I can barely see differences. Okay, maybe slight differences, but not significant. And this is also the case with the ultra wide camera sample here. And speaking of the front camera, the iPhone 14 processes images well and the details are sharp and not shaky. The front camera also detects better colors on the iPhone 14 than the Apple iPad Pro 2022 lineup in both indoors and outdoors conditions. And if you're wondering how the video quality on the Apple iPad Pro 2022 lineup is, here is a sample. As you can see, the Apple iPad Pro offers a very good stabilization, which is almost on par with any mid-budget smartphone with an OIS enabled camera. Now, speaking of the battery, I couldn't fully test the battery capabilities because I had this Apple iPad Pro for a very brief period of time, but I can tell you this, at least when I got it, I watched 2 sports programs on Hotstar and a 40-minute long episode on Netflix with some minor gaming and reading here and there, and the Apple iPad Pro easily worked for an entire day. At least the good thing is that the box includes a 20-watt charger, which you do not get with the smartphone, and also you get this very nice braided Type-C cable. And speaking of Type-C, Apple iPad Pro also comes with the Type-C port, which Apple has again expanded to its 2022 lineup of regular iPad models, which is a very good addition. There are rumors that we might see a Type-C port on iPhones next year. Well, we'll have to see for that. To summarize, Apple iPad Pro 2022 lineup is a very powerful device, but again, it has a very niche kind of audience. If you're a regular customer, Apple iPad Air model with an M1 chipset will easily suffice. If you're a creator, I'll easily say that the Pro model is a blessing in disguise, but again, a very expensive blessing. So in that case, if you have the money and you want the latest iPad in the market, iPad Pro will not disappoint you. But if you want something in the budget and again a very capable and more powerful than average laptops in the market, the Apple iPad Pro 2021 model will easily suit your requirements. So overall, I'll give this an 8 out of 10 rating, but you let me know in the comments what do you think, whether this iPad Pro is too expensive, whether it is worth the price tag, and the M2 chipset, whether it will create a big difference in the future or not. Meanwhile, don't forget to subscribe Fiber Hindi, Fiber English channels on YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram, where we make regular reels. Like this video if you like my content. I will see you very soon.